And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what's going on in the world today. We'll take a look at the news and have a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And of course, if you are listening anywhere else and you'd like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ScrewTube at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, respectively. You can also find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Being joined today by two felines. One in the background there, you see Daniel cleaning himself up in the chair. And I also have Miss Kitty in the room. Miss Kitty is sitting someplace where you can't see her, but we'll see if she comes out of hiding. Naturally, I do read through as many of the comments as is plausible, so I'll go ahead and say hello to some of the folks who have chosen to chime in and say hello so far. I see Helter is with us here today, as well as Dragon and Cyberjack Sr. You'll wait to see if anyone else says hello, because not everybody who watches necessarily says anything, and that's fine. You don't have to. You don't have to jump in. Gary Edwards is here. Glad you could make it today as we get ready to jump off into the news and see what is going on in the world today. And it's finally starting to circulate. Now, yesterday I had to read a story all the way from overseas about what's going on in America. And that, of course, is in Ohio, where the Haitian migrants are now 25% of the population in one particular small town, and they're basically destroying that town. I watched some of their town hall meeting yesterday. And again, it's starting to blow up in the media now. But I watched some of their town hall meetings yesterday, and people talking about that they've got groups of Haitian migrants with mattresses on their lawn, sleeping out there, rummaging through garbage cans, killing pets, flash mobbing supermarkets, and just standing around eating food and throwing the packaging on the floor and leaving. And they're tearing the town to pieces. And the town is at their wits' end. And I speculated, odds are that town council took one of those federal tax kickbacks to accept migrants into that small community. And so going to the town council and saying anything to those people is a complete waste of freaking time, because they do not care. They're the ones that did that to you. Well, we're seeing more of this. This is a Daily Caller article that's coming up here. Daily Caller article. Overwhelming our small towns, Ohio AG, Attorney General, suggests the courtroom battle to stop feds from dumping more migrants in the state. And that is Dave Yost right here. Dave Yost is about fed up with it, or so he says. So Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost announced Monday that his office is investigating how to stop the Biden-Harris administration from continuing to resettle massive numbers of foreign nationals into his state. It might be too little too late there, Dave. An enormous increase in the migrant population in Ohio has taken place during the past 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration, leading to a strain in the state's economic, medical, and educational systems. Yost declared in a press release. Ohio's top prosecutor says he is now directing his office to research courtroom strategies on how to stop the White House from sending an unlimited number of migrants into Ohio communities. Quote, how many people can they be expected to take? The GOP Attorney General asked. What are the limits to the federal government's power? Could the federal government simply funnel into Ohio all the millions of migrants flooding in under the current administration's watch? Technically, yes. There's got to be a limiting principle. Yost continues. We're going to find a way to get this disaster in front of a federal judge. But yeah, you're not going to stop it unless you can change the current administration completely. Here's a quote from somebody in the town meeting, and it's and you can find the town meeting on YouTube now. And I hate this for these people. They go into these town meetings thinking that they're actually going to affect some kind of change, that they're going to reason with these lawmakers. The lawmakers are the ones that did it to you in the first place. They give you your 3 minutes and you move on. And if you don't move on, the sheriff will escort you out of the proceedings. Okay? They do not give a shit about what you're saying. They don't care who you are. They don't care what your opinions are. But the law says they have to listen to you for 2.5 to 3 minutes, so they do. And that's about all there is to it. Gary says, third world voodoo culture. Now we know why we can't have nice things. And Raccoon has joined us, as well as Jane. And Nature Nerd says, Ohio is a conservative state, which is why Biden administration is flooding it. Indeed. Now, here's a quote, and I heard this woman in the town meeting. It says, I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. One resident tells the Springfield City Commission during an August meeting, according to the National Desk, the resident referred to as Noel said that she felt unsafe because a number of homeless migrants were allegedly camped in her neighborhood, and some even allegedly camped out in her yard. Quote, look at me. I weigh 95 pounds, Noel said. I couldn't defend myself if I had to. It's an elderly couple, by the way, her and her husband. And they're screaming at her in a foreign language, but I promise you a lot of them do speak English. Okay, they do. They do speak English. And I see Chillin' Dave has joined us today. And Jane says the bad immigrants is a big problem. It is, and it's a massive culture clash to throw them out there. They're not looking for work. They're not looking for a better life. They maybe they want to escape from their country, and they're given legal asylum. This is the issue. Because it's Haiti, they're automatically given asylum status on account of the turmoil in Haiti. But when they come here, they bring all their mess with them. They're not looking for work. Why should they? When they can just steal or take from the system. They're not trying to integrate into society. They're bringing their society with them and forcing us to put up with it. Kidnapping and sacrificing people's pets in garbage. All the stuff that you hear about in these town meetings, it's insane. It's insane, but it's pointless. And they have video clips of these people at these town meetings. And I feel bad for them, because they are literally wasting their time talking to these town councils. Again, these lawmakers are part of the problem. They do not care that you are upset. All they care about is that they got their tax breaks. And Chillin says, may I play the other side of the fence? And Dragon says, October surprise in September, just in time for the debate. Really? And Hilda says, according to the media and Kamala, there's no problem. And those who think there are conspiracy theorists. Tell Fluffy that. Yeah, they're conspiracy theorists. But then you get guys like this. Let me turn the audio on for him. If I
come out from doing what I do on a daily basis to have fun, because I see what's going on in these streets, and I see you guys just sitting up there in comfy chairs and suits, and I'm getting out here every day. And I'm broadcasting this, and you guys are just sitting up there in suits. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into... they flipping cars in the middle of the street. It's getting bro, I'm getting thousands of views on these. And it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs, all y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a t-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here.
They're not going to come out there. They're not going to do a damn thing. And that's what these people don't understand. They're the ones that help to create the problem. They are not going to, and the best you're going to get is a feeble apology. They're not going to change anything. They're not going to give up any money. It's not going to improve. You're not going to vote them out. You're not going to change policy by going up on these podiums and whining. But Americans have been fooled into thinking that that's going to work. That's going to work. Marvel fan is here. He says it becomes bad here in my area, but what's crazy is most that come into my store are driving brand new cars, wearing nice clothes. Wasn't this bad a few years ago? And Fluke Man has joined us as well. Unbelievable. But this is, this does not surprise me. This is unfortunate. And again, I feel bad for the people that stand up in these town hall meetings and think that anything that they have to say carries any weight or is going to change anything at all. It's like going to the school bully who beats you up and takes your lunch money every day and saying, hey man, could you kind of lay off on that? You're going to get beat up more, ultimately. And part of what he's referring to is the school bus that flipped over last year in that community, killing one student and injuring, I think, 20 others, severely injuring 20 others, because the school bus company had hired a migrant with a foreign driver's license, and that person was tried and convicted for involuntary manslaughter, and I think he got 9 years in prison. Gary says fat butt bureaucrats won't sing the blues. No, they will not. And Marvel fan says anyone watching the debate at a party event, the Republican Party here doing a watch party, will be fun. Now, I've got a couple of things to say about that because, yeah, that's coming up tonight, correct? Jane says these immigrants are not to drive properly, but giving cars and apartments, whaling gangs, and hurting folks. Yes, they are. Yes, they are, unfortunately. And Jane says a U.S. law stating you cannot hold immigrants for crimes because they're not a citizen. That's crazy and needs to change. It depends. It depends. If you're in a sanctuary city, you can't. But if you're in other places, you can. It depends on how the law is set up state by state. But yeah, a foreigner can be held. We're going to jump to the USA Today, and it's surprising to see the USA Today doing this because they're very dripping, milk-soppingly wet liberal now. Bernie Sanders told the truth about Kamala Harris trying to fool voters. Believe him, they say. You may have heard Maya Angelou's powerful saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Sometimes when other people tell you who a person is, you should believe them too, especially if the person in question doesn't want to tell you who they really are. That's the case with Vice President Kamala Harris. In an interview Sunday on Meet the Press, Senator Bernie Sanders, a progressive independent from Vermont, said something about the Democratic vice presidential nominee that she isn't willing to admit to voters. Well, what would that be? Let's see. Quote from Kristen Welker, who was the host. She had previously supported Medicaid for all. Now she does not. She previously supported a ban on fracking. Now she does not. These, Senator, are ideas that you have campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals? Sanders, no, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she is trying to be pragmatic and do what she thinks is right in order to win the election. Now, he very round there, and whoever article, let me see, Cole Russell at USA caught it. Because a lot of people wouldn't understand what he just said, would not understand what he just said. Basically, he said that she's not going to change a damn thing about what she wants. Quote, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. What is she doing? Doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election. So she's not going to do what she claims she's going to do. She's just going to tell you whatever she thinks you want to hear if it's going to get her votes. That's what Bernie is accusing her of here. But he does it in a very nice way so as not to step on any toes, because he's part of the problem. He's part of that whole group. He's part of that whole group. Raccoon says they need to be sent back right where they came from, and Jane said something similar there. Yeah, and that's been my argument from day one. Anyone who comes here that does not want to contribute, it would be cheaper to put them on charter flights back where they came from. That's how we used to do it. That's how we used to do it before we just said, oh no, we can't deport anyone. And Gary Edwards is shocked that USA Today is still around. Well, wonders never cease. Well, they're digital like everything else now. Because USA Today was a big deal back in the day because they made a play for some of the biggest newspaper vendors in the country, like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, which you could buy in newspaper vending machines in any state. You remember newspaper vending machines where you put a quarter in and you took a paper out and it was on the honor system because the papers were just kind of stacked in there? USA Today made a play for being a nationally syndicated paper in that regard. And their idea was to put it in the white and blue box. That box was supposed to resemble a television. And that's why the front page was always in color. And they thought that since people are so addicted to TV, when they saw the USA Today vending box, it would trigger an impulse. And it worked, actually. That actually worked. It was clever marketing. Tuck says Mars Today went under a few years ago, but USA Today is still going. Oh, Tuck, you're invoking Total Recall. Total Recall, Mars Today. And Dilo has joined us. He said no notification again. Unbelievable. But yeah, Bernie Sanders, a snake in the grass, telling you that Kamala Harris is basically lying to get votes, that she's not going to change her stance. Oh, she's against fracking now. No, she's not. She's just telling you that. Oh, she's against messing with Social Security. No, she's not. She's just telling you that to try to finagle votes out of gullible people. Because why? Because people are dumb. He didn't say people are dumb. I'm telling you they are. Most people are not that smart. I say it all the time. People are just not that smart. Okay? The problem is that there's just way too many people in powerful positions that exploit that or that treat them that way. Just because somebody's not that bright doesn't mean you have to treat them like a moron. You should try to encourage them if you actually are in a better position than they are. Don't talk to them like morons. Don't treat them like morons. So these are people, the politicians and the like, are experts at exploiting the fact that most people aren't very bright. And it works. It works. And while we're on the subject, we might as well talk about one of the most hated people in politics. Who do you think that might be? I'm curious to see who people regard as one of the most hated people in politics. A political celebrity socialite that has been around forever and everybody hates them. For some reason, they keep getting elected. I wonder if anyone knows who that is. As Daniel continues to groom himself back there. He's been doing that for like 20 minutes now. Nature Nerd said Kamala has far left positions while saying Donald Trump's position. While mimicking rather Donald Trump's position to pull in votes. Correct. And I've actually seen a meme with Kamala Harris wearing one of those "Make America Great Again" hats, but instead of "Make America Great Again," it says "I'm for whatever he said." I'm for whatever he said. And Frankie is here. He says, guys, stop using the notification bell. That's how ScrewTube unsubscribes you from channels. I still get notifications every day for Penny U. Do you? I don't know what they do or how that works, Frankie. I just know that they screw with both my channels. Tuck says that's a long list, but I'm going to let you off the hook here. It's Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi. Fox News article. I thought this was really interesting. It says Pelosi suggests Trump might skip the presidential debate against Harris. Quote, I know cowardice when I see it. I know cowardice when I see it. God, look at her. She's just hollowed out. You know, all of the hair dye and makeup in the world can't cover that. Just stop. Anyways, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested former President Trump could skip the upcoming presidential debate because of cowardice. But the GOP nominee's campaign insisted she's simply attempting to spread, quote, fake news. That's right. Pelosi appeared at the Texas Tribune Festival over the weekend, where she spoke to journalist Kara Swisher about a variety of topics before signing copies of her latest book. Oh, gross. More money laundering, huh? I don't think anybody buys these damn books, I swear. I whenever a politician puts out a book, come on, Bill Clinton did not make $23 million off his memoirs. I saw hundreds and hundreds of them stacked up at Buck-a-Book in Boston after he left the office of the presidency. Okay? They went right to Buck-a-Book for $1, and they weren't moving. You did not make $23 million from that. You couldn't have. But anyways, Pelosi spent much of the time ripping Trump, of course, because she has nothing better to do. God forbid she does her job for her constituents in California. We got to run around all over the country and talk about other politicians. And turned up the vitriol when Tuesday's highly anticipated ABC News presidential debate came up. Swisher asked Pelosi what advice she would give former Trump ahead of the matchup with Harris. The 84-year-old Pelosi quipped, "You think he's going to show up?" The largely liberal audience burst into laughter, followed by applause, as Pelosi slightly smiled. With all that Botox, slightly smiled is probably as close as she could get without her face cracking and falling off. Swisher asked, "Do you know something I don't know?" Pelosi says, "I know cowardice when I see it." Oh, God. Do you? Where do you see it? In the mirror? Perhaps you see it when you look around the room during congressional settings. When do you see that cowardice? Let me catch up a couple of comments here. Dragon says Nancy Pelosi. There you go. Eric Peter says, was watching the behavioral specialists and they made a point that most people are tribal and it doesn't matter if their ideology is against their leader. They'll still bow down to them, not to be outcast. Yeah. Marvel fan says they can't stand her. Jane says Trump will be there. I hope it does not get down to name calling during the debate. Well, it won't be able to because they're going to mute the mics, which is why Harris didn't want to do the debate, because she wants to be able to jump in and be ghetto and pop her gum and snap her neck and have her moment like she did with Mike Pence, where she was like, I am talking here. I am talking, because it appeals to a certain demographic. Unfortunately, it really does. But you can call Trump a lot of things cowardice. I don't think so. He'll get in your face and he'll talk. I don't see him backing out. Keep in mind, it was Harris actually that tried to back out and eventually had to accept ABC's position, even though she didn't want to. She didn't want to do the debate if she couldn't have live mics. She didn't want to do it. So she was the one that was being a little cowardly there. Trump, also, if he wanted to be a coward, he could have backed out of a lot of his court hearings. He has bounced back and forth between every court hearing, even when he didn't have to be there. That's not cowardice. I'll give him that much. I mean, a lot of people don't like him, but, there's certain things you can't take from him either. Gary says, I'll take claymation makeup for $500. Yeah, claymation she's probably got about a 1/4 inch of foundation on. It's probably pretty disgusting. And Sean is here. He says the same with Michelle Obama's books. All of them. Barack Obama, I don't care who it is, Hillary Clinton, Bush Jr., any of these guys, they print a book and they get paid tens of millions of dollars upfront money for a book that they did not even write. Because go and read the bibliography in those books. They are ghost written. A professional writer sits with them, takes some notes, has a couple of interviews here and there, and works all that together for them. Okay, they don't even write those books. T.D. Jakes is another one. T.D. fakes. You think he really has written like 250 damn books? I don't think he's written one. Honestly. Joel Osteen, how many books do you think he's honestly written? Oh, you leaving, Daniel? Oh, Daniel has left the building. Oh, well. And the trick with that, though, with the religious leaders, I'll tell you how this works, actually. What they do is they buy their own books so they can get on the Amazon or the New York Times bestseller list, rather. I almost said Amazon, same difference. But the New York Times bestseller list, by buying their own books, and then they turn around and they resell them at the shows that they do. When they hold, the men's Bible study or whatever they call it. I forget what they call that stuff. Aaron's Army, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, Jericho is here. But that's how they do it. But with these politicians, they get upfront money for this stuff. And I'm like, that's got to be some kind of payoff. It's got to be some kind of payoff. And that's how they do it. And yeah, Jane says there'll be closed mics and lots of facial expressions. Raccoon says, how is she not in jail either? Hillary and her can be cellmates. You know what'll happen if it ever comes down to it, that there's ever a position by which Nancy Pelosi might end up in court and might face jail time. Suddenly she'll be too old and frail, and she's not going to be able to appear in court, and she's not going to go to jail. Okay. I'm just an old woman. I'm 84 years old. Who are you? Where am I? Watch. Jericho says everyone opposing Trump thinks he's going to skip out and run away with his tail between his legs. The guy would put reporters in their place during conferences. Nothing cowardly about the guy. Yeah, he goes on to say she might be projecting. No, you can't accuse him from running. You may not like him, whatever. Some people don't like him. That's fine. But I've never known him to just split, to just be like, oh, hell, I'm not going. No, he will confront you. He will confront you. Marvel fan says Trump will be on his game tonight. I feel it will go well. And then it's over for Momala. Yeah, Momala. Here's the thing. It all depends on who you watch. It all depends on who you watch, because there will be plenty of commentators and plenty of news agencies that'll sit there and say, oh, Trump made a total fool of himself and he just prattled on and nobody understands what he was talking about. And then there'll be other news agencies that'll say, oh, Kamala was just a blithering idiot. Nobody reports anything anymore. They don't. It's all commentary. I mean, I'm doing commentary, but I'm telling you it's commentary. I'm not telling you that I'm giving you the news. Even in the description, it says opinion, on the title of the podcast. It's because there are opinions. I've got opinions. The people in the comment sections have opinions. That's what we're doing. If I was just, if I was only going to read what it said, then I couldn't do that. That would be something entirely different. But they don't sit there. We don't have Walter Cronkites anymore, or Dan Rathers, who just sit there and read. This is what we know. This is what we've heard. This is what has revealed itself thus far. That doesn't happen anymore in the news. It's all opinion. And it's not even the opinion of the person necessarily that you're listening to, because they're giving the opinion that they've been told to give. They are not journalists. They are actors. Some of them are really bad at it, like Don Lemon. He's a terrible actor. His fake outrage used to piss me off. We were like, I can't Well, I can't believe that people believe this. Shut up. No one believes anything that you say. Philippine says Clinton's Pelosi, many others would opt in to have their minds read by mind-reading machines to prove they're good, honest, and cares about the people and done good jobs. But immediately something. It didn't. The thought didn't get finished. The thought didn't get finished there. But that's what we have. That's what we have now. Everything is opinion. Nobody just presents the news. Nobody just presents the news to you anymore. And I've made that statement before, that once upon a time, people used to present you with the news and you would watch it and you would decide how you felt about it. Now they tell you what to think and feel, and you have to sit there and decide if it's even the truth. You don't know if it's real or not. You don't know if anything happened or not. You have to sit there and try to decipher whether or not you're being flim-flammed or something actually happened. That's where we're at now. As we jump to Germany, and that's Minister, what's her name again? Interior Minister Nancy Faeser in Germany. She's got on way too much makeup too, and her roots are showing. Your roots are showing, dear. Anyway, Al Jazeera article. Germany announces temporary controls on all land borders. So Germany is extending temporary border controls that it already has in place at some of its borders to all of its land borders, the Interior Minister has said. Berlin will work closely with neighboring countries in implementing temporary border controls, according to Interior Minister Nancy Faeser, who added that it would keep the impact on border regions as small as possible. Quote, "We are strengthening our internal security through concrete action, and we are continuing our tough stance against irregular migration," Faeser said in a news conference on Monday. "It is important for us to act in close partnership with our neighbors and to minimize the impact on commuters in everyday life in border regions," Faeser said. Yeah, too little, too late. They've been pouring over your border for almost a decade. Germany isn't Germany anymore. Okay, your country's cultural identity has been crushed. It's been diluted. Now you want to watch your borders. Seriously? This is what seriously? We're continuing our tough stance. You should have started your tough stance way back in 2015. That's when the tough stance should have happened. Jane thinks it's funny that I noticed her hair roots. Oh my God. Oh, and Flukeman's continued unfinished comment. They would immediately make excuses when it comes down to actually doing it. Oh yeah, lie detector test, or if somebody could read their mind, they'd be like, yeah, sure, I got nothing to hide, and then something would come up, of course. And Jericho says, I think the news subliminally gaslights everyone. Yeah, well, I think they deliberately gaslight. It's not even subliminal, it's obvious. But, again, people are not that smart. So even though it's obvious that they're trying to upset people in a lot of these articles, most people won't pick up on that. Won't pick up on that and sit there. And how many times have you seen me reading one of these and I'm like, yeah, this is a very one-sided article, obviously, but let's go ahead. They're deliberately pissing people off. Deliberately pissing people off. But yeah, too little, too late there, Germany. Too little, too late to be sitting there complaining about problems at the borders and too much migration. Again, there was a huge influx starting way back in 2015 to 2017 all across Western Europe. All across Western Europe. And nothing was done about it then. And it's still going on and intensifying in Western nations, and it's not being controlled. It's not being controlled. And it's too late. I mean, what are you going to do? The only thing they could do is try to purify their culture by ejecting everybody. Round up everybody you can and send them back where the hell they came from. Round them up and send them back. But you'd have to go back damn near a decade now, because I'm sure most of them are still collecting benefits, still living off the system, still not citizens. So yeah, you may as well kick them out, put them back where they came from. It's the only way that you're going to save Germany's culture, Germany's finances. I'm sure their financial structure has got to be an absolute disaster at this point. Absolute disaster at this point. This is something that let me see here. There's something I wanted to bring up. I'll save that. I'll save that as we jump back to Ohio really quickly. And Johnny is here. He says, listening but not watching. That's okay. Listening and not watching. As we open up the next article, and this is from the Center Square. Is it going to work? Come on, Restream, you can do it. There we are. Spokane Council members apologize on behalf of City for State of Public Safety. You gotta love it. Listen to this. Council member Jonathan Bingle held a press conference on Monday apologizing on behalf of Spokane following the announcement that Zona Blanca, an upscale restaurant, would close after being broken into 20 times. Celebrity chef Chad White announced the upcoming closure of his Zona Blanca ceviche bar last week. In his announcement to Facebook, White cited increasing crime, open-air drug use, and property damage as the key factors in his decision to close the location after 8 years. In an interview with the Spokesman Review, White said his restaurant had been broken into more than 20 times, with 2 being as recent as this month. Zona Blanca will close officially on September 29th. To our elected officials, this is a quote, "I humbly ask you to recognize the urgency of what's happening in downtown," White wrote on Facebook. "If someone like me, who has been fortunate enough to gain national acclaim and enjoy immense support from the community, is struggling this hard to keep the doors open, I can't begin to imagine what it's like for those who don't have the same privilege." Okay, so now you get to the town council. Okay. First and foremost, and this is a quote from Bingle, "First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the frustration and the hardship and the worry that many of you have been experiencing for far too long. We have watched our city drift towards disorder, and for that, I want to apologize. We, as your elected officials, have not done enough to enforce and support the laws that are meant to protect the community. This cannot be the Spokane that we accept. To all of you, let me be clear. This city's leadership, myself included, must do better." Yeah, too little, too late. Too little, too late. And that's Spokane, Washington. Too little, too late. You have run the city into the ground, and you're apologizing because a celebrity is being forced to close his restaurant. Gary Edwards says it's pronounced Spokane. Is it? I don't know. I added the E. All right, Spokane, Washington. Flukeman says, but first they need to round up the people that allowed it in mass immigration. You'll need to help from the cops and military. At the very least, they stay out of the way. Is Spokane, Washington? I'll take your word for it. And Frankie said, blah, blah, blah. We'll try to do more. Vote for us again, please, and thanks. That's right. That is correct. But that's basically what it boils down to. They're embarrassed because it's a celebrity closing his restaurant. He posted it publicly where people all across the country could see, and now he's addressing it. Oh, we as lawmakers have to do better. You had your chance. You had your chance. You allowed for the situation to get this bad. You allowed for it to get this bad. And we're supposed to trust you now. Oh, you're sorry. You apologize. I believe that. I really do. And Dragon says another city whose voters elected progressive politician lunatic policies have resulted in rampant crime. And Gary is in Washington State. Okay. Okay, you know better than I do then, as far as pronunciation on the local townships. But that frustrates me. That these people, again, it's just like the town meeting stuff that we read about earlier. They're the ones responsible. You allowed this to happen, and now you want to apologize because you're embarrassed. Because you've been called out publicly and you need to say something. Too little, too late. You got zombies walking around out there. You got drug use and drug sales in the public, out in everybody's faces. The city is ruined. It may not recover. It may not recover. And that's something to consider in a lot of these places where things have gotten this bad. Like we were reading about in Ohio with the Haitian migrant population. The only way that you're going to recover with that is if all 20,000 of them are rounded up from that town and shipped back to Haiti. Is that going to happen? Is that going to happen? And Sean says the locals call it Spokompton. Do they? You might be right. Who knows? Who knows? It just like they call California California. What are you going to do about it? Again, they've got to be rounded up and sent back to where they came from. It's the only way that you can handle it. It's the only way that makes any sense. It's the cheapest, most efficient option. Cheapest, most efficient option. And as far as all these drug zombies, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Because putting them in rehab is not going to help. It's not going to help. They don't want your help. They don't want rehab. Rehab doesn't work anyways. I've dealt with enough of it when I worked for the Juvenile Justice Authority. Nobody wanted to go. Nobody wanted to go to rehab, and they all rebound. They all end up using again. And that's why you hear stories about people that have been in rehab 25, 28, 32 times before they got clean. They didn't get clean because of anything that happened in the rehab. They got clean because for whatever reason, some of those people decided, I can't live like this anymore, and they made the choice. Rehab doesn't work. Those people, a lot of them, you'll never be able to help them. And that's the sad part about it. Then I see Picario has joined us. And Flukeman says they're apologizing because of the next election. They know Trump is going to come down on them like 10 tons of bricks if he becomes the president. And Jane says, what about getting a psych hospital set up so they can live there? Then you're talking about creating an institution specifically. Hi. Oh, you don't want me to get you? Granny Smith's in the room. You're talking about setting up an institution, and America moved away from institutions because they don't want to be responsible for them. They don't want to be responsible for them. So plus that's taxpayer money. You're paying for that. You're paying for them to live in an institution for the rest of their lives. And a bunch of people who have no idea how to deal with those kind of people are going to complain that their human rights are being violated all the time. That's how come so many mental hospitals were shut down in the United States back in the 90s, and all those people were put on the streets. Half of them died. Is that more humane than keeping them in the hospital? The people who were complaining about their human rights never worked with a mental patient. I have. Baki says they always wondered having the homeless clean up areas for cash. We can't control how they spend it, but would they at least benefit communities? If they're willing to do it, I guess. I suppose you could. Hell, maybe you could pay them with drugs. Oh, man. There you go. Pay them with narcotics. Hey, man, you want your hit? You got to clean up the park. I knew a guy from Egypt, and he had a solution for it because there was a lot of homeless bums used to hang around in Boston over by Harvard Avenue, and he didn't like them. And he says, what you do, because they would get rounded up every once in a while. They get arrested or something. They'd be put in rehab, and then they'd be right out on the corner, drunk as hell or high as hell again. Like a few months later, they'd come back and fall right back into the same pattern. And this is back in the early 90s. And he said you should put them all in a building that they and force them to go cold turkey and force them to get clean. And then if when you let them out, they get dirty again, then you execute them. I was like, no, we can't do that here. That'll never fly. Fluke Man says they shut down mental hospitals to save money, not to help them. Well, they didn't want the liability, is what it boils down to, is the avoidance of liability. That's why most states will fund group homes instead of run their own state facilities, because then if anything goes wrong, they can point the finger at the group home, and the state is exempt. They'll mostly they just fine the group homes or the independent facilities, but they don't hardly ever shut them down. Sean says, have you seen Zombies of Kensington? Unbelievable when you see it. I might have, because I've seen a few videos like that. And Baki says, facts, and we have clean, spotless parks. And Tuck says, when he was homeless, he would have picked up trash. I did anyways, unmasked. Now this, I'm going to show it. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I got to be real careful what I say here because of the level of heat that this story has brought. Okay? Independent article. Owens, and that is Candace, suspended from YouTube after Kanye West interview, violated their policies, their hate speech policies, let's put it that way. Okay. Controversial commenter Owens has been suspended from ScrewTube after sharing a 2022 interview with Kanye West. I said Kane, didn't I? Kanye West claiming, let's say people of Hebrew descent control the media. The far-right commenter decried the move in an announcement on X where she revealed she's been suspended from the platform for a week because the interview with Kanye, which was finally published last month, apparently violates the platform's hate speech policies. Quote, there will be no show today or at all this week because ScrewTube has issued me a strike and a 1-week suspension for my sit down with Kanye, she said. They also removed the interview as H speech, and I think you know what I mean by that, as it was mass reported by, and I won't even read that. Gary says no Haiti speech. Indeed. But that's an important thing to consider. It's not even her opinion. Okay, it's an interview from 2022 that she was finally able to put up on her channel, and she got a strike and a suspension for it from ScrewTube. And that's just censorship. And that's a big channel. You can imagine, I gripe about getting hammered all the time. This is a person with 2.5 million subscribers. I think that's correct, right? 2.5 million subscribers on ScrewTube. And they shut her down for letting someone else talk because that's his opinion that he was stating. That he believes a certain demographic of people have a controlling factor in media. And you know what's funny about it is that for anyone who believes that, her suspension lends credibility to the concept. But yeah, just when you thought that there might even be people who are exempt from getting crushed by Google or ScrewTube, think again. Think again. And Kanye's an idiot anyways. Some of the stuff that he says doesn't make any damn sense. There's something wrong with that guy. Speaking of someone who has something wrong with them, I present to you Tim Waltz. I think this is very interesting, but for a different reason than is being expressed in this article. Okay? This is a New York Post article. Tim Waltz, China travel company shut down after he failed to pay a $26 tax. So, Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Waltz's China tourism company was dissolved by the state of Nebraska in 1998 after he failed to pay a $26 fee, I guess, in business operating taxes, according to reports. The Minnesota governor's for-profit endeavor, Educational Travel Adventures Incorporated, which catered to student groups seeking to travel to China, was shut down by the Nebraska Secretary of State for non-payment of occupational taxes in April of 1998. The company, co-founded by Waltz and his wife Gwen, was first registered in Nebraska in 1995. Despite his company going defunct, Waltz continued organizing student tours of China, including at least 2 trips in 1998 and 2001, according to outlets. In 2002, Waltz founded another entity with the same name in Minnesota, which he touted during his 2006 run for Congress. Waltz, and this is a quote, Waltz established a small business called Educational Travel Adventures Incorporated, through which he conducts annual educational trips to China for high school students. Reads an archived press packet from Waltz's congressional run, which notes the governor was part of one of the first government-sanctioned groups of American educators to teach in Chinese high school. All right. It says reports indicate Waltz apparently may have stopped leading student trips in 2003. Now, I don't really care that he was defunct because he forgot a tax and the state of Nebraska nailed him for it. I question his obsession with China. Remember, his first teaching job was in China. Okay, that was his first job, teaching in China. He had his honeymoon in China. He has traveled back and forth to China, I believe, dozens of times. And, I didn't know that until this article. He's led youth groups of American citizens, children, to China on educational tours, apparently multiple times, and been paid for it. What is up with dude's obsession with China? And how far can we trust him that there's no influence there? And Flukeman said, didn't ScrewTube allow videos people harassed, bullied, threatened, and attacked Hebrew people while shouting "Free Palestine"? Yes, they did. Not racist when non-white attacking Jews, but if you're white, yeah, yeah, they have allowed it. They have allowed that, but then they attacked Candace. Oh, yeah, I almost said her whole name. I don't know if I can safely say Owen's full name, but they don't like her, and that's enough. That's enough. I just wonder about his obsession with China and if we can trust him at all in that regard, especially going into the office of the vice presidency, considering how much trouble we are having recently with discovering spies in the United States working for China. Speaking of which, and Frankie says, indoctrination to our new Chinese leaders. Yeah, if Kamala wins. Speaking of which, you may already have one in the White House, which is what this article is alluding to. It's another New York Post article talking about Julie Su. Julie Su, where are you? If you've never heard of this person, you're about to. Julie Su brought California corruption to the White House, and Harris will keep her there. Okay? This is Julie Su. All right? And she is the acting labor secretary under the Biden administration. President Biden's nonchalance about Chinese spying, hacking, and election interference is a cause for national worry, and his indifference to the Chinese threat extends even to the White House. Acting Secretary of Labor Julie Su's catastrophic 2021 face plant while serving as California's labor secretary made China stronger while making the world a more dangerous place for Americans and American ideals. Yet Kamala Harris and her backers, including United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain, said that they would like Su to stay in her post after January 20th, despite the Senate's refusal to confirm her nomination. They have refused to confirm her nomination, by the way, for the last 548 days and counting. She is America's longest serving unconfirmed cabinet officer in U.S. history. Su's confirmation troubles stem from her time as California Governor Gavin Newsom's Secretary of Labor. In that job, she ignored warnings about vulnerabilities in the state's unemployment benefits system, claiming that tougher ID verification standards would disproportionately hurt Black and brown Californians. Because of those actions that left the system vulnerable, $32 billion were stolen from the state's C virus fund, hacked out of the benefits programs. $32 billion. And she's still working? The staggering sum, about a third of all American unemployment insurance fraud losses during the pandemic, included a $20 billion federal loan intended to backstop California's pandemic-stressed unemployment trust fund. Multiple sources now say most of the lost money, about $26 billion, was captured by international crime gangs operating on behalf of foreign adversaries, and the taxpayers' cash stolen by, guess who? China's Advanced Persistent Threat 41 group and others is already being deployed against Americans and American interests. So the money was hacked out of that system by a Chinese hacking group, is what they're saying there. That 26 billion of that $32 billion, China's Advanced Persistent Threat 41 organization, a hacking group, on her watch under Gavin Newsom. And now she's our labor secretary. She's our labor secretary in the executive branch and has not been sworn in by Congress, who refuses to swear her in, but she's been in position for more than 548 days and counting, breaking a record for an unconfirmed officer. Unbelievable. And this is allowed to go on. Why is this person even working? Are you insane? You'd be under scrutiny if you were at a cash register and lost $32. She lost $32 billion. $32 billion, ladies and gentlemen. And people trust Waltz? Seriously? But with that, we are at the top of the hour. Actually, we have gone over, but that's okay. You are listening to, again, and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk and Prepper University at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. Sean says, how is that even possible? Yeah, it's a good question. She ought to be sitting in prison. I mean, there's obviously something very, very screwy about all of that. And why don't people know that this is happening? And now that they know, what's going to be done. But anyways, again, I will thank everybody for being able to join us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will catch